Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this beautiful, meaningful conversation interview with my beloved teacher and mentor, Rita Rivera Fox. I'm so grateful for your presence in my life. Um, yeah, I don't even know where to start, honestly. Looking back years ago, I'm not the same person where I was, and you've seen me transform.
Oh, thank goddess. Hopefully none of us are.
Yes.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm super grateful for that, of course. And um, that's where this topic conversation came from
Yes.
today. We
Yes.
are talking about the pathway to authenticity.
Mm.
So, where do we begin and where do we go from there? Yeah, I'll hand it over to
It's
you.
almost, it's almost too obvious that what you what you took on, the invitation I offer to the people I work with, apprentices, students, is that journey from an inauthentic, um, more hidden, fearful self to this full-hearted, brilliant, authentic self. And that's really been your walk,
Yeah.
we would say. And um, being one who likes to cut to the chase, um, I define authenticity as the ability to be with all of our emotions, all of our feelings, and every sensation that's going on in our body.
Mm-hmm.
That's where authenticity begins. This is with that ability to shift away from the story, the history about what we're feeling or experiencing, and coming right present in the moment to
Mm-hmm.
be with in a new present way what we're experiencing.
Yeah.
And so, authenticity really comes from that ability to befriend our emotions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What a journey it's been. I mean, if you were to tell me that, I was to embark on that path of facing whatever is not authentic to me, I would never have gone there, right?
And so,
Uh,
can you see from this point of view, Marina, that fear is how our inauthentic self shows up?
yes, fear showed up many, many times for me
Yes,
throughout the journey. It's been
yes,
at least 6, 7 years I've been
yes,
apprenticing with you in the Toltec school. And that's
yes.
where we go from story to body to the material world to, the emotions, the spiritual. And there was a lot of fear. I don't remember a single time where I stepped up to the conversation with you and there was no fear.
Mm-hmm,
And you taught me how valuable fear is and
mm-hmm.
how to not fear my emotions.
Yes.
So, to the women that are joining the conversation today, and I get this question asked very, very often from
Mm-hmm,
women is, how did you get there?
mm-hmm,
Like, how did you get that confidence? Or you're like fearless.
mm-hmm.
How did you get there? And of course, everybody's expecting like this magic wand, just do this to me and make the fear disappear. So, you taught me about walking
Mm-hmm.
into that authenticity and leaning into fear.
Well,
So, what
it's
was, yeah.
it's the response when we're called, whether it's because there's a time in life when our life isn't working, or when we know that spirit, our true spirit self, is calling us to step out. When our true, authentic spiritual nature is so strong, that desire is so strong, that we have to say yes. That begins that seeking. And a lot of times, what we don't recognize when we start a spiritual journey, because spirituality has a glow and a promise, and so we're kind of blindsided in the beginning or at some point along the way when the fear and the doubt come up. We're like, well, this is not the spiritual walk I was anticipating. I thought it would be love and I would be ecstatic and radiant. And so that's often really the initiate's quest, the initiate's moment of truth is when we begin to recognize that, oh, in order for me to really meet myself, who I am, I have to walk through and let go of all the things that I am not.
Yeah.
And so whenever we come into a time in our life when we state an intent, like, I want to be more loving, I want to give and receive more love, I want to know myself as love, I want to have a spiritual unity that I know is real between myself and source. Any of those very high desires for our journey, immediately what shows up, and this surprises people all the time, is everything that's preventing us from living from those heart expansion, full places. So we state these glorious intents for our spiritual opening and well-being, and then boom.
Yeah. I've been there many times. You've seen that. You've seen me
Yeah.
there. And what shows up is freeze, fight, or I'm out of here. Right?
Yeah.
That or a rotation of these three
Oh
very
yes.
often.
Oh yes.
So what do we do? And then we flee the path, and then we come back a year or 2 or 5 later, and the same story shows up. The same fear monster shows up, and again, we flee, we fight, we freeze. And you taught me something else.
Yeah. I taught you to feel. So what you just described is a reptilian brain response. And those triggers are automatic until we are aware enough to notice, oh, I'm running from, oh, I'm fighting this piece of truth that's trying to emerge in me, or I'm just completely frozen, I'm powerless. And each one of us we do go through that cycle, maybe not each one, but because we were domesticated in this life, as early life as humans, we all get a chance to choose again. So that imprint, that programmed imprint, it's not meant for us to go through life with those kinds of heavy reactions in the body. Those triggers and reactions that cause emotional pain are the golden nuggets. That's where the gold is. And on a true spiritual journey, if you're willing to meet those moments when either fight, flight, or freeze is operating, there's so much valuable information there for your own personal freedom. It's personal freedom that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Spirituality, the road to spirit, the spiritual road, the pathway to authenticity, to me, is all the same, meaning that it's a search for personal freedom.
I love how you are calling it a pathway to
Mm-hmm.
authenticity, a pathway to spirituality, because today we only see the end result very often in this like quick social media, especially like people my age, like it's a quick fix. We're all expecting a quick fix, that pill that's gonna magically.
That's why you have elders like me.
And I'm indeed.
That's why you have elders like us.
Yes.
All the beautiful grandmothers everywhere.
And I'm in deep appreciation for that, and honor to carry on that knowledge and lineage. Of course, I don't take that for granted. Like you taught us the ways, so it's a responsibility to carry that on and not cut any corners, which people do today very often.
Well, the understanding to all of this, my love, is that you are already one with all creation. These little emotional reactions we're talking about, flight, fight, anger, sadness, anxiety, those are all the erroneous aspects of our programming. So if you can think about it in terms of, what I desire and what my heart is really yearning for already exists within me. So the question is, so then what prevents me from living that in every moment? And that's where the spiritual journey is in the questioning. So if I am already that, and I'm one with spirit, I've never been separate. I am that divine force in this body. Then the question becomes, then how do I obscure that? How do I hide that light? How do I hide that truth? And so it becomes a search for and a deepening into that. It's pure self-discovery. We're not really looking out there. We use each other as mirrors, but what the journey really is, because it is all waiting for you here, is this inward dive.
Yeah.
And in there, of course, are all of those shadow places as well.
And something else that is coming up as you're speaking about it, as I look back, in my journey and celebrate all the falls, the challenges, the wins.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're speaking, it's like, yeah, that knowing was always there. That's why, I said yes in the first place, right?
Right.
And I was already on a spiritual journey. I was doing yoga and meditation and
Yes.
Tony Robbins' work and Wayne Dyer, Esther Hicks, but I think it was the moment for me was the commitment to cultivating this truth with one mentor, with one path.
Mm-hmm.
That's what made a big difference. Because
Mm-hmm.
before that, it was just like I wanted to feel good. And
Yes.
it was like, I was shifting that feeling from one teacher to another, from one experience to another, but I wasn't fully committing into exploring what was that story, what was that pain, what was that emotion that I did not want to feel.
Exactly.
So I wanted to do some yoga to feel better. I wanted to then shift into, some guided meditations to bring something else into my awareness.
So it's so curious, because it really does start kind of our inner journey, our self-discovery really does start with a desire to feel better. It starts that, I just want to feel something other than what I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Lighter, more expansive, more joyous, more compassion, more love, however you want to say. But that is the starting place. And then we find something that increases our happiness. But until we know that the happiness we're searching for, until we have the experience of happiness within ourselves, otherwise we're allowing other things and other people to be in charge of our happiness,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they can go away, or that can end. So we start really with that idea of this happiness that I'm searching for. Oh, I'm really searching for it inside of myself. And then what happens is, like you said, you have an emotion. You have something. You have a reaction that says you can't. You're not good enough. You have a reaction of some nature that shuts your happiness down. Your heart closes, and no matter how strong that teacher is, or that path, or that mystery school is, each of us has this emotional reaction that shuts everything down. And you begin to question the modality. You begin to question those things and yourself. And so what we want to know then is, whatever emotion arises is, again, authenticity. So I help my students, my apprentices, people that I work with, learn really specific and practical tools to meet those emotions that previously have derailed us. And so that we begin to learn, first of all, emotion is an erroneous term. I'm only using it now because that's a common language. Hopefully, those who are listening, when I say emotion, they know what I'm talking about. But when I say sensation, what is she talking about? I'm talking about how we experience emotions. We experience them as sensations in our body. And so when there is an old, heavy, uncomfortable emotion, that sensation in our body is so uncomfortable that we close down. We in actuality, we take our awareness up into our program, take our awareness up into our mind. Most of us have been domesticated and have learned how to function in this dream from this dominant mind. So this mindset that we operate with, we are learning, and especially now with this strong infusion of feminine transformational energy. Some of the chaos that we're going through, some of the unpredictable changes and energies that we're going through, is that as we let go of relying so much on this program mind and turn to actually experience our feelings, our bodies, the sensation of life moving through our bodies, this is, to me, how the divine feminine is coming online. We talk about it. We talk about the age of the return of the feminine. There's many terminologies for what's happening right now. But in the practical sense, how we do that is we develop a different relationship with our bodies. And that relationship is much more accepting and nurturing. And we understand that emotion is just another channel of information. Every emotion that we experience, every uncomfortable sensation is a message. And those messages are actually so right on. There really is no such thing as a negative emotion. It's only what's negative about it, or what we might think of as negative about it, is simply what created it. Mm-hmm. And so the simple teaching here that we work a long time just to get this, that every thought has a corresponding emotional reaction. So once you're tracking that, my thoughts create my experience. My thoughts create the energy in my body. And then we can start to track. We can start to use awareness. We can start to use mindfulness to work with our program minds so that we can have a more comfortable, expansive experience in our bodies.
Yeah. Wow. You said so much in here, and there's so many ways we can spin this conversation. And I'm also, trying to, I know I'm aware of our listeners, the women that are tuning into this conversation of this International Women's Day, and what is it, being a woman in all of her spectrum today.
Yes.
And I think what you're pointing to, and I've experienced this with you, is this mind and body. And, being a yoga teacher, I am quite embodied. So I can literally experience the switch from the thinking mind and how loud and this hungry wolf, the never ending tyrant is. And then the moment I just flip the switch to the body and the feeling, it's
and
a whole different, and the breath, of course, the vehicle that takes us there.
That's the vehicle.
Is like a whole different frequency. It's a switch. And we've invested so much of our time and attention into the mind. And I don't know the percentage, but I would 90%, 80% of time more, we are operating on the mind. And it's how can we have a practice that is more embodied? What do you suggest to your, students and apprentices in terms of a daily practice or a weekly practice, it's almost
Oh,
like
good
I feel like
question.
we need to retrain ourselves
Yeah,
to
as I
do that.
said, there's really practical tools, and they really do begin with being mindful of breath. You know, that's why a lot of what I've developed in my own process and how I work with people came from yoga, came from being um, curious about uh, the body and the movement of energy through my body, and my teacher. So my teacher would always say to us, um, life is passing through. And it was a very simple statement. Life is just always attempting to pass through. And so that's how I see these sensations, you know, these responses called emotions. They're just energy. They're energy that are really just trying to pass through our bodies. And with our programmed minds, which tend to judge emotion, that's how we get into trouble in the very beginning. Is because, as you said, we're listening to these minds more often, and they have a lot of opinion and beliefs about feeling. You know, as we know, we're very cautious about showing our vulnerability. We're very cautious about certain, you know, allowing certain people to see our feeling natures. And so we have a habit in our society of judging emotion and therefore shutting it down and thinking of it as an inferior kind of information. So we're just really now starting to see that the information that comes from sensation, from feeling, has valuable information. And we're just looking for balance. We're looking for a place where the mind does what it does best, and the feeling nature and the emotional body and the energy body do what it does best, and everybody's living
Yeah.
in harmony.
Yes. I remember being in that place and feeling that place. And there was one particular moment where the joy was coming up. There was so much joy and playfulness that was coming up. And at the same time, there was so much sadness that came up with it because I didn't have the place in my life to feel that all the time. And even looking back at my childhood, I was brought up in a communist country back in Russia. And it was like everything had to be, you know, explainable, and you had to behave and look good. And there was no time or room for play and just, you know, being silly and being joyful, It's like you had to earn that somehow. So that was part of my story, is like there was no room for me to express
Sure.
that joy. So I was just so sad and blocked by like, wow, how am I going to
And
feel that? It's
and
not
your
safe.
sadness actually scared you.
It did. So I did not see that there was anything else on that other side of it. And I was paralyzed by just the unknown, like what's going to show up on the other end. And I remembered you held me right there, you stayed with me, and you took me through this process of just feeling that emotion and overcoming that fear. And oh my God, on that other end was just like a whole explosion, a release of freedom.
It's freedom. It's freedom. Once we can walk ourselves through or allow someone to walk us through that emotion and recognize it's not going to kill me. I'm not going to, there's always some big consequence that our mind, our belief system is, if I feel that, people will think this or that, or I'll. It's kind of crazy sometimes what we allow to prevent us from being authentic. But once we move through that, and once we see that we have the courage, that we have what it takes to, well, it really is mothering ourselves. I call it becoming our own benevolent mother, you know, so that we all grew up with a lot of distortion around, you know, when we would cry or feel vulnerable or fearful, a lot of times that wasn't honored. You know, a lot of times that was either a reason to isolate you as a child, or to, you know, to make you feel inferior, like there's something wrong with you if you're feeling this. And if you're crying, there's definitely something wrong. So what we're trying to do with ourselves now is make this landscape, this setting, this place for acceptance of all that we feel, all that we are. And once we remove that judgment, once we are no longer willing to hold judgment against ourselves, that's a big initiation. For women, that's one of the biggest initiations, is the line in the sand when you declare, I no longer will judge myself for anything. I will hold space for accepting how I am, all that I am. I may not understand it yet, but I don't reject the notion of my multiple abilities to express all these ways that I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so much right now, to me, everywhere I look right now, and what I read, what I see on YouTube, what's emerging, which is so exciting at this time, is finally this validation of these feeling bodies, of these emotional bodies, of these aspects of self, intuitive,
Yeah.
Heart-centered, heart-intelligent aspects of self that are coming into the common language, and more people are guiding others to experience this. And to me, this is the evolution of consciousness. This topic right here.
And there's many men that you also work with that
I
are
love
longing for that
I
space to meet their
love my
emotions,
male
right?
clients.
Let's talk about the men for a minute. Like
Oh my God.
I work with
Yes.
women on the other end who are craving for more of these like real relationships where they want to
Exactly.
relate on multiple
Yeah.
levels with the men, right? They want to be met in a conversations, in their emotions, in their sexuality, in their daily life, on a
Exactly.
body, mind, spirit,
Yes.
all levels.
Okay.
And for a long time, men we're talking about the majority of men, obviously,
Yes.
they weren't able to have access to their emotions because
Well,
boys
so
don't cry and all that stuff. So tell me
yeah,
about how do
what
you
you're
work with
saying
men?
is it's so exciting. I'll try to cover this. It's so exciting because this is, again, now the evolution of relationships, which is, so what you just said is that women are looking for men who can meet them where they are. Okay, and now women are the ones that are the kind of the leaders of the consciousness frontier. We're the ones that said, I'll take this and I'll go forward, and our curiosity, our desire to free ourselves kind of led us to discover all of these ways to really know ourselves. And so we look back and we see, oh, well, the men are, they're kind of back there. I don't know if I'm going to wait for that one or not. And most women are saying, no, this life is too rich and too full. So we've talked about this before. My experience and what I still hold to be primarily true is that women are the ones that inspire and motivate and actually invite men to explore a more authentic, more feeling place in their experience.
Making it safe for them.
Men on their own are discovering these pathways, but it's when a man is in a relationship with a woman who is a few steps ahead of him, and she turns around and she says, I invite you to explore this with me. I need you to show up in your heart. I need you to show up in your acceptance of this emotionality that lives between two humans. And that invitation, that's my witnessing, what I've witnessed over the years and in my marriage, is that it's the invitation of the woman who has this broader experience that brings the man in.
That's so
And
beautiful.
that's where the learning happens.
Yeah.
Yes, there's occasions, of course, when the man is the leader and the man knows this already more emotional, fulfilling place in himself, and he invites the woman in. But intimate relationships, to me, are that invitation. to meet each other in those heart open, vulnerable, a messy, undefinable places that emotion is.
Yeah.
And I'm still challenged. I've been married, 14 or I always lose track of the years I've been married. But there's always there's always more vulnerability. There's always a deeper way to show up. And that's why, the relationship container is, I think, how that really comes online.
Yeah. And your marriage and relationship with Ed is so inspiring and so beautiful. It's so beautiful to watch you guys move to Boulder now and, do your Sunday errands. They,
Yes.
the organic market and the Boulder Creek runs and all that. It's beautiful. And I remember you said that we are no longer, in these old dynamics, obviously, but when you committed to holding space for each other's growth, that was like the biggest commitment that you can do, because we're not perfect. We're not perfect on our own. We're especially not perfect with another human being showing up there.
No.
But when we can commit to each other's growth and our growth together as a couple, that is such beautiful, the greatest commitment we can have. It's beautiful.
That is the nature of a spiritual relationship. Is the primary purpose of coming together is to grow the spiritual identity. To become more real with who we really are. And my relationship serves that. It helps me.
Yeah.
And it's it's the priority. I mean, there's a lot of other things that relationship offer, and we experience those as well. But that's where our strongest bond is holding that space for each other. And especially now during these, it appears like with the intensifying of everything on our little planet. We could talk about that intensifying as being, well, there's many ways to talk about it, but what it does bring up in relationship, of course, is that we kind of move through our soul's karma really quickly. As there's this intensifying energy. We're going through lots of old releasing very quickly, and it can be very demanding on a relationship. It can be, because if we're really committed to our own process and our own clearing and our own showing up, then we really need to have a partner who knows what that is, can hold space for it. And fortunately, it seems like with Ed and I'll be going through some shedding, through some transition, and he can hold space for me, and vice versa. And fortunately, we haven't been too challenged when we've both been, having to move through some of those transition places. But understanding, I want to say this, I want to wrap it up in this way. So the reason that emotion is important and is a vital place to place our attention is because once we've rectified and understood and accepted emotion, we move into the area where it's safe to feel. We move into a whole new relationship of being safe to feel. And once we have and are embodying our own safety and feeling that to me is the place where love, that is one of the definitions of love, self-love, is the ability to hold myself, soothe myself, create emotional safety for myself. And once I can do that, then I can show up in a relationship. I can show up in a relationship more fully, and I can express more love. I can give and receive more love just by having done my work to befriend my emotional body.
Yum. Oh, beautiful. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What a great wrap up to this beautiful interview conversation.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Rita, so much for
You're
taking
welcome.
time.
You're welcome, my Marina.
sharing your wisdom with us. Let us know how people can connect with you, or what turns you on these days. What's alive for you? And
I'm really loving right now my client work. I work primarily at long distance. I have a number of clients that I work with on Zoom and video. We don't have to be in the same place. But the key ingredient right now is the depth of healing that people are taking themselves to. And I guide them energetically. I do a lot of deep inner work with people. And we do a lot of clearing of the shadow, the psyche, the kind of old agreements that were made. And, just leading to a more authentic expression. And creativity is really turning me on these days. I've committed to my painting and my art, and I'm creating a intentional creativity retreat in Mexico in the fall. So all of that's available on my website. My individual work, one-on-one clients. I've worked with entrepreneurs to bring more heart into the business place, to the workplace, and but primarily right now it's almost midwifing. It's almost midwifing individuals who are really answering the call to raising their consciousness.
Beautiful.
And
beautiful.
Yeah, it's an honor to be in service at this time. It's not a particularly easy time for any of us. But if we can take everything that comes to us and see it as purposeful, even those more difficult, hard challenges can be turned into gold.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Rita, so
Thank you,
much.
Marina.
Again, for
Thank
your
you for
time,
asking.
your work, your deep work in the world, and moving this, consciousness into evolution, into motion. And it brought me to my path of authenticity, and I'm so passionate about working with women now, and
Yes.
really like empowering them, and because of you, you
Well,
took
and
me
because
here.
you said
So
yes, you walked, you've done the journey. You're doing the journey, and
yeah,
so you can be a way shower for others because you're doing it. That's the authentic part of what I love right now when I see leaders now and people who are teaching, and it's people who have walked through the fire and maybe still walking through the fire.
it's never going to
And
stop.
yeah, and are fearless about that walk.
Yes.
And that's how I see you. I see you courageous and full-hearted and shining brightly and offering that to others. And I trust that they will accept your invitation.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to take women on this journey, because it's
I
like,
know.
it's about time.
I know.
About time. And
I
I'm also
know.
excited about the men that are, coming along, and these divine, beautiful partnerships that are created. It's just, oh my God, I'm so on fire these days.
Yeah, there's so many.
Witnessing the magic when women get it and something transforms within them. It's like the whole world just shifts around them.
Yes.
And it's just a joy to expand my own world and communities. And so thank you so much.
Thank you for
And
the joy, my friend.
we'll post some links underneath
Thank
these interviews, and then they'll be sent out to our participants, so they can follow you. Your website will be posted. And happy International Women's Day, everyone.
Thank you.
And thank you for being my spiritual mama, and I hold you dearly in my heart. Yeah.
Thank you, my love. I love you so much.
I love
I
you.
love you so much.